Welcome back, listeners. Today on Created, we have a dynamic duo who have been friends since childhood and have been creating businesses together since then as well, from selling toys in elementary school to starting their own clothing brands, their entrepreneurial guidance workshops, and now even diving into Web3 and NFTs. We wanted to welcome Brandon Iverson and Jordan Williams, the minds behind the Moguls brand. So welcome, guys.
Woo! Thank you. Thanks for having us. We're super excited.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Of course. So I just wanted to start by having you guys share a little bit about yourselves and where you guys are from and come from. Like I said, you have been friends since childhood and have been creating businesses since then as well. So just give us some insight into that.
I can speak for the both of us, I think, and Jordan can chime in as well. But again, my name is Brandon Iverson. I'm a 23-year-old entrepreneur. And, like Luke said, we've been starting businesses since really the age of 9 and 10 years old. We're both originally from Atlanta, Georgia, born and raised, and we are actually born 6 days apart. So we've been kind of at the hip since childbirth. Our parents were already friends, before we were born. So it was just kind of a connection that we've always had and we were born into. But yeah, we were friends growing up, played basketball, went to school together. And, growing up, we watched our parents be entrepreneurs. We never really saw our parents work 9-to-5 jobs or corporate positions. They always were running their own homegrown businesses. So we're really just products of our environment from childbirth. So, just like any kid at 9 or 10 years old, you want the latest games and toys and, want to impress your friends with clothing. So there comes a certain point where your parents had to say no. And, when we heard that, we had to figure out ways to make money for ourselves so that we could be able to, continue to buy video games and things like that. So I remember one of the first books that me and Jordan read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki at 10 years old. And that book really sparked our entrepreneurial journey. And so from there, we started our first business together called Kids Toys Inc. And Kids Toys Inc. was really just like a online kind of eBay where we sold our old toys and games, refurbished video games that we were done playing with, and we sold it to our friends at a discounted price. And it was just kind of a way for us to get our feet wet with e-commerce and learning how to, market ourselves in the digital space. And then from there, we went on to create a company 3 years later at 13 years old called Making Money for Teens, where we learned all this knowledge about entrepreneurship and all the books we read, and we wanted to supply it to our friends, but in a easy to understand way. So we created like a CD series where, at the time people were still listening to CDs in their car and on their phone. So we had information about investing in stocks and learning about just how to start a business from scratch with no money. And that even led us to create our own book called Who Needs an Allowance? So we kind of just taught teens how they don't need an allowance and that they can actually start their own business without the help of their parents. So I just talked a lot, and I'll let Jordan talk more about what we did after Making Money for Teens.
Yeah, I think you really started off perfectly, sort of describing how we adopted that passion from our parents and, we're selling a lot of those toys and games out of our book bags. So those were good times. I think from there we kind of took it to a different level of when we were kind of getting to high school age, and we enjoyed selling CDs and books, but we kind of wanted a product that was more relatable to people our age. People in middle school, high school weren't always trying to read books or listen to CDs about investing all day. So we thought that a clothing line would be pretty cool, just because a lot of people our age were into fashion. Streetwear brands were really popular, but it also gave us an avenue to, subtly promote certain topics and themes. So while we had clothing that was, cool designs, it also had a positive message of entrepreneurship or encouraging people to start thinking of themselves as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. And so that really inspired us to pivot to starting a Moguls brand. And I think, at the time we might have been sophomores in high school. And it was just a simple way for us to, encourage our peers to think like moguls, to think as business owners and see that future for themselves. And, really it started for us just sort of designing shirts, once again, putting them in our book bag, packing as many of them in our book bag as we could, going to class and kind of, selling them in the hallways, selling them in the middle of class. And, teachers probably thought we were doing like some drug deals or stuff with all these stuff we were selling from our book bags, but it was just t-shirts. Um, and it started generating a little buzz around high school, and then really we started utilizing social media, and we realized how powerful social media was. And I remember we started doing giveaways on Twitter, and we would do all these different competitions, and slowly people from other high schools in Atlanta and around Georgia would start buying the shirts and taking them to their schools. And slowly this just started to build, and eventually, after having some opportunities with media outlets and with magazines or even just news shows, and doing our best to just push the brand wherever we could, we were able to start getting orders from around the country, around the US, and really build it into a bigger brand. And that's something that we took even as we went off to college. Brandon went to college at Georgetown in DC, and I went to UPenn in Philadelphia. So we kind of went our separate ways, but in a way it was good because we were able to both continue building the brand in new places and have our own experiences. And throughout college, we grew that brand, and I think after graduation, as we started getting more into Web3 and more into crypto, we started seeing potential to really take this brand to a new level, not just a national brand, but have the potential to make it a global brand, and to use some of the aspects of Web3 and NFTs to really allow our supporters to be a part of the brand, allow them to participate on a deeper level. And that's really what sparked, where we are today with Meta Moguls. And Meta Moguls is an extension of Young Moguls brand, that basically, is centered around our collection of NFTs that give the holders a lot of different benefits and access to social events that we do in the future, networking events, also access to our Discord and business development resources, or events that we invite special entrepreneurial speakers to. And also it will be our ticket to holders joining our investment DAO and our investment clubs that we're planning on rolling out, within the next few weeks, where the community will be able to own collective ownership in a portfolio of other NFTs or in other digital assets as well. So really, we just see this as another extension of Young Moguls brand, that's still centered around financial empowerment, still centered around the community of young creators, but enabling us to do it in a more creative way and a more fun way that keeps people included more than just buying a t-shirt.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One thing I love about having you guys on and that we're trying to do in this new season is you have so many different dope creative projects that you're doing and have done in the past. So I'm curious, for both of you, what does it mean to you to be a creator, given all of the projects that you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it's just being able to take whatever idea or using your imagination to then craft something into the real world. And I think that's what separates people that have an idea but don't act on it versus creators. Because as creators, you have to be a risk taker, right? You have to risk the fact that people might look down on you or might say, "Oh, that's a crazy idea." But as a creator, you have to have that wherewithal, that drive, that vision, that regardless of what the outside noise might say, or even your own internal battles, whether or not this might work or not, is just the actual mindset behind being a creator is half the battle as well. Because a lot of people have great ideas. You probably heard people say, oh, I wish I had thought of that, or I had thought of that, but if I had done it, right? But it's actually the people that, had the idea, put it into action, and then created a product or created a service or whatever it might be, that really, in my opinion, embodies what a creator is. And I think that's what we try to do with every single idea that we come up with is, put a course of action in place, regardless of if it's going to work, whether it might succeed. We've had failures in the past. We've even had obstacles with Moguls as we've gone, but we continue to create, innovate, modify, adjust, and I think that when you put all those things together, that makes what a creator is.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Brandon, I think you hit the nail on the head. I always see creators or entrepreneurs as people who are in the business of value exchange. I think in our society, a lot of times, obviously we all create in different ways, whether it's just with our friends or in our household or providing for a family. I think people that label themselves as entrepreneurs are just creators, just like everybody else, who sort of take it to another level and try to provide value to the masses or on a mass scale. So in my opinion, I think everybody is a creator. Everybody might not be a creator on a large scale, but I think that a lot of times entrepreneurs, sort of feel like they have value that they can package in some sort of product or service and deliver it, outside of their household or outside of their friend group, and in some way, shape, or form, use that value to make other people's lives a little easier. And, obviously, if they're able to do that successfully, value comes back in return, whether it's in the form of recognition or monetary value. But I really look up to creators who start that value exchange and initiate it by finding out what they can provide to other people in creative ways.
I love those definitions because, like, I think a lot of people listening to us are thinking like, oh, I'll create YouTube videos and then get sponsored by MailChimp. The very basic kind of traditional like creator method. But creating content, it is a product, right? Like you said, there's that like value exchange, and also just that business mindset of like, okay, beyond just creating a video, getting sponsored like by MailChimp, how can I create these multiple streams of income? So I'm curious if y'all could kind of like walk me through. Obviously there's the Moguls project. That's maybe the most recent example, but with all of the things that you guys are doing, how do you look at like, okay, there's a new opportunity for like a new stream of income in addition to all the other ones we have right now? What makes you say this is worth our time and like going all in and taking the risk on adding this as one of our income streams?
Yeah, I can speak about it a little bit and then I'll let Jordan hop in. But it's all about just, first of all, doing your due diligence and looking at the market, right? When we took a look at the NFT and crypto market, it was such in its infancy that we saw that there was a unique opportunity where we could be an early adopter in this. Even to this day, there's still only 1.5 million people that currently hold NFTs, which is really nothing, right? We're still a long way away of mass adoption of NFTs. So, we wanted to be early in this space where we knew that we could provide something unique, right? Which is the diversity, leadership, and financial education and financial literacy piece within the NFT space, and craft a lane where we could then, make connections and build an empire on top of that for years to come, so that whenever mass adoption does take place, might be 2, 3, 5 years away, whatever it may be, we're still, still at the frontier of that, where we've established, some sort of footing within this market. So for us, it's more so about identifying markets where we can provide value, just again, going back to what Jordan said. And then when we do identify that market, how can we then, turn it into a viable business, viable product or service, so that, not only we're having a stream of income in the short term, but also a stream of income for, years to come, right? Because I think that's the most important thing, being able to leave a legacy for yourself, for your family, have multiple streams of income that obviously, make you money in the short term, but also last, for years to come as well.
I agree. The only thing I'll add is I think one thing that's been beneficial for Brandon and I is sort of just being very strategic with, analyzing ourselves and our skills. I think we've both been of the belief that, everybody is blessed with their own unique talents, their own unique skills. But I think that the people that really reach their fullest potential are the ones who know themselves really well, who know their strengths, know their weaknesses, and because they know themselves so well, are able to put themselves in the best positions to be successful. I think a lot of times being successful isn't all about being the best or being the smartest. It's just about knowing how to position yourself to win. And I think one of the things that comes with that sometimes is looking at those skills and at your resources almost as currency. So like knowing that we have a finite amount of talent, we have a finite amount of time, and a finite amount of manpower for the visions that we want to bring to reality. And in the same way that Brandon and I could go to the store with $100 and try to use that $100 the best to purchase the things that will give us the most happiness with that money. We have to do the same with our talents and our skills. We might want to go out and start a bunch of businesses, but we kind of have to take account of, okay, with our time, what project will really give us the most happiness, and what can we provide the most value doing right now. And I think Brandon's had experience with that. I've had experience with that, with balancing a 9 to 5, really questioning, okay, what venture can we do now to really feel like we're providing value to other people and also aligning ourselves with what we like to do. And I think that's how we came upon Moguls. But even upon that process of coming to Moguls, there was a lot that we had to deny or turn down or put on the back burner for the time being, because we really want to get this off the ground. So I think that's something that's just helped us be able to just acknowledge our limitations, but make sure that we're really getting the most out of the projects that we commit to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I love the framing of like your time, resources, etc. That's currency. You only have so much, so where's the best ROI? Basically, like it makes a lot of sense, and I'm curious. Like, I'm working on a new media brand called OKOP, and there's all sorts of possibilities with like Patreon or merch or things like that, and we're constantly like, should we invest our time into this, or is it better to like focus on the main thing or that kind of thing. So I'm curious, like, just a quick follow up on what you guys said. Do you usually try to like do like a test, like a minimum viable product, so to speak, of something, or do you basically say like, okay, let's like assess as much as we can and either like go for it or not?
That's a really good question. And, just real quick, and then I'll let Brandon hop in. But I almost feel like, at least for Moguls, that's kind of what the Discord was for us, for both sides, really. Like, I think for us, it was almost our opportunity to kind of test the waters and see, okay, would people be interested in an idea like this? And can we use this to get feedback from a community on what type of things they would want to see? And at the same time, on the other end, I think it's a test run for other people as well, that we always, told people that the Discord was really just a free trial of getting an NFT and really joining the community. Is sort of a teaser to see the types of engagement or what the conversations would be like with the other holders, to show them what that product could look like in the future. So I think definitely that's been important for us, is finding those different ways to sort of do test runs to see what people think. I mean, because at the end of the day, we could have an idea or a product that we think is great, and could be really important to us, but at the end of the day, the community and the people get to decide the value of something, and the market gets to decide. So I think it's really important to have those ways to see what the market really thinks, because their opinion means everything.
Yeah, just following up on that really quick. I think Jordan pretty much hit the nail on the head. The only thing that I would say is I love what, people listen to or watch Shark Tank. Mr. Wonderful always tells people that come on the show, is this a business or is this a hobby? And, one of the things that you can do to kind of identify that is, do focus groups, do surveys. You could be super passionate about a project and feel like this is the greatest idea in the world, like this is going to make me a ton of money, this is going to change lives. But until you actually get some market testing done and get opinions from other people and data and statistics, then, you might really come to find out that, oh, I might need to modify this here or tinker this here or change the name here, and a lot of people want to just kind of, jump off the cliff or whatever analogy you want to make and go head first into whatever project that they want to do, without taking those necessary baby steps to make sure that it could be a successful idea or creation in the long run. So, Jordan kind of talked about the steps that we did to make sure that we were on the right track. And I think, people kind of put together an outline and a game plan to make sure that their idea is viable, then, you're on the right track.
Love that. And then going into that idea of ideation and how long it takes and the want to really just like you said, jump off the cliff and jump into that one thing. I think there's a common misconception among people who want to be creators that if they're not making their money, they're living off of the thing that they're creating, that they're not successful. We've kind of found the exact opposite. I mean, I know I have a job on the side. I know John does some stuff. I know you two have jobs on the side. I would love to know, kind of from your point of view, can you give some insight into what being an entrepreneur and a creator, like what that actually looks like? Like, are you unsuccessful if the one thing that you're creating isn't your only means of income?
That's a great question. And I think this is such an interesting topic. It's hard sometimes because I think it can look differently for different people. I think obviously there's some people who are starting businesses and have investors and have a lot of stakeholders, and that comes with a different, definition of success sometimes, where you need to make money, you need to, make profit or show benefit to the investors or the other stakeholders, just because that's kind of how the system works. And we kind of operate in this, in this capitalistic society a lot of times, where money is tied to success, or money is seen as the main indicator of success, which at times makes sense and I think can be an indication of success. But I think it can be a lot broader, especially when you get to, you know, the term of being a creator and just creating in general. In my opinion, like the act of creating and just expressing yourself and whatever it is, whether it's a podcast, whether it's an NFT collection, a clothing line, or even, some other type of business, in my opinion, the act of successfully expressing yourself through it is successful in the first place. And, is kind of the end goal. And I think it's better that way as a creator sometimes, because yes, you want to take, other people's thoughts into consideration. You want to hear feedback. But I think there's just a pure sense of creativity that's seen when people are given the space to create on their own accord and just let things flow instead of worrying about, the metrics or the money and driving this and that. So in my opinion, I like to think that success can be dictated just, personally off of how you feel you've expressed yourself and the impact you've been able to make. But, I'd be naive to say that there's, of course, especially when you have people investing in your project, they want to see numbers, they want to see value and profit. So I understand that too, but I think it's good to keep that creative part pure as much as possible too.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in real quick, just to follow up on that. I think people also have to realize that entrepreneurship is also a mindset, right? Being an entrepreneur is a mindset. You don't necessarily have to, have a business that's self-sustaining and, your main source of income. You could be an entrepreneur within your job at work, right? I feel like if you're someone that goes above and beyond your coworkers, if you're someone that's a self-starter in the workplace, you're able to be a leader. You're an entrepreneur within your role, and it doesn't necessarily have to start off with you, taking that leap of faith and starting a business. It can start within your current environment at your job. It could even be on the field if you're an athlete. I feel like entrepreneurship is a mindset, and it starts there with your mind and the way that you conduct your day-to-day activities, and then from there you can branch off to doing it, in a physical way where you're actually creating a business on the side. But I really just think it goes also back to social media and how, at least as millennials, our minds are so gravitated towards, so many young creators, that they see, that they look up to, making millions of dollars, when really that's really not the reality. I mean, from what I understand, I believe only less than 1% of people in the U.S. make over $400,000. So if you're making, over $400,000, you're technically rich, right? So, but even as millennials and young people, we don't feel like we've made it. We don't feel like, we're successful unless we're making millions of dollars. When really that's the upper echelon of, a lot of people in our country, at least. So I think we just kind of have to come back to earth a little bit, especially as young people, and realize there's a process to everything, and it first starts with your mindset, and then from there you can take it a step further.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. And talking about just being a self-starter and taking those steps and trying out those different hats, so to speak, to find kind of what is going to make you happy, and what direction you should be taking yourself and your brand personally in. I definitely agree with that. As dynamic creators who have done exactly as you just said, have gone into so many different subsets of creation, how did you find your way to Web3?
That's an interesting question as well. I really like how you described it as just being willing to try a lot of different things. I think that Brandon and I have always kind of had that mindset of, being curious about, sure, ways to make money, and ways to invest and try to set our financial future, but also just new ways to express ourselves from a young age, whether it was the clothing line, or okay, maybe let's try writing a book, or let's try, even dabbling in real estate and stuff like that. I remember Brandon came to me randomly one day about how he wanted to get into real estate, and at the time I was like, I've never really thought about it, but let's try it. And we had some really cool experiences in that realm so far. And when I've come to him with ideas, the thing I've appreciated is that, before just saying no, he'll be open-minded just to consider it and try it. And I think that's even how we kind of came into crypto and Web3. Brandon probably has been involved in crypto longer than I have, but I know that I especially started sort of ramping up and investing and getting involved in crypto more heavily when I started working full time after college. And so, I was finding a lot of different companies that were involved in stuff I was in, whether it's like sports companies like Chili's. I remember I came to Brandon talking about Chili's and Socios, or just a lot of random other companies that were interested, that looked interesting, and started sharing a lot of those with Brandon of like, oh, okay, this looks really cool. Brandon had already been in crypto since the last wave, really, and probably had like a sour taste in his mouth from some of the the dip off from the previous wave. But I think that from those conversations, we just started getting into things more heavily. And I know the thing for me that really kicked things off to another level with NFTs was NBA Top Shot. Just in terms of seeing, that's just really what made it hit home for me, and seeing like the value and what the hype was all about as someone who's really into sports, who's, can see the value of like sports collectibles and things of that realm. I think that's when my mind started really to see all the potential in this space. And I think, from a Meta Moguls perspective, I think it took us a little longer to really see ourselves as potential creators in this space. But ironically, I think it started happening when we were sort of dabbling with the idea of doing a podcast. And we were kind of thinking about, okay, how could we, engage people through our podcast? Maybe we could talk about NFTs. And I think then we kind of just shot the idea of, maybe we could just make a collection of NFTs, connected to, Moguls brand, and use it to provide different access to this and that. But I think, like you said, it just started with us being willing to sort of dive into the space early on, not know what we were doing, but, watch a lot of YouTube videos, ask a lot of questions, learn, make some trades, make some wins, some losses, and then get to the point where it's like, okay, let's take the next step and let's learn as creators and not just as consumers. And I think that's one of the best decisions we've made, because it's brought so many more lessons that we wouldn't just learn from, you know, buying and selling other people's NFTs or just buying coins.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So kind of piggybacking off of that, and as like I said, or like we've established, being in Web3, being in NFTs, you really are this new wave of creators, for lack of better description. So I'm curious, outside of people who are Web3 focused or NFT or crypto focused, somebody like, let's say, John or myself, who are more traditional creators, what opportunities do you see for these creators in this new space?
Yeah, I mean, the opportunities in this space are endless. It's really mind blowing how far crypto and Web3 have come and how much further it still has. Um, I love the different technologies and the different opportunities that are coming out for creators, even on the podcast level. I'll talk about a few. So one of the first ways that content creators are benefiting from, this new wave of Web3 is through content creation. I know that there is a platform called Mirror.xyz, and it's for people that create articles. So, if you have an article or an idea that you want to publish, then instead of writing it on Medium.com or on any other publication, you can actually write it on Mirror.xyz, and it'll turn that article into an NFT, and then you can sell it um, and earn basically residual income every time someone reads and purchases that NFT. So, content creators now will be able to get even more income from their content that they create, and people can contribute towards those efforts by, paying a small fee towards this NFT that's in the form of an article. So I think that's immediately how some, journalists and people who write will be able to to make money in this space. There's a podcast platform right now called Rug Radio. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it, but they're one of the first decentralized radio slash podcast platforms where it's actually a podcast that's owned by the community. And so the community, it's formed in a DAO. So a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. So basically you buy the NFT to get access into the DAO. And then now you have say so in what topics the podcast or radio show will talk about, what guests. You get some sort of revenue share as well. So I can already see how, people who are in the radio podcast space can, benefit in the future of creating a decentralized podcast platform, which involves the community, where not only you benefit from their idea creation and human capital, but they can also benefit from a monetary standpoint. So those are a couple of examples right off the bat where, Web3 is really decentralizing the way we do everything, but also giving that value exchange for the creator and for the audience. And then we can talk about NFTs as well, artists right now, contemporary artists. I mean, it really helped honestly save the contemporary art space, because in the pandemic, art houses, museums, things like that, were receiving less activity because everyone was cooped up at home. Even starving artists, independent artists that were trying to get their artwork out there, NFTs have really been the shining light for those artists to now have a platform where they can sell their art digitally, make money as well residually from a month-to-month basis from people reselling their artwork. So, just from a artist standpoint as well, it's really transformed that industry as well. I feel like gaming is going to be huge for people who are developers of games, people who play games with play to earn opportunities. I can go on and on, but there's so many opportunities for a lot of creators in multiple industries, and we're really honestly at the precipice of it. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I think Brandon hit, a lot of the industries, and I'll just double down on, I think a lot of people are expecting the music realm to be another very interesting one, especially since it's a space where artists have gotten kind of cheated out of a lot of their profits, especially when they're getting started in their career. I don't know 100% what that'll look like, but I think that there's just a lot of opportunity there if someone can figure it out. There's a lot of interesting platforms right now, like Audius or Sound.xyz, that are enabling artists to kind of go direct to consumer instead of needing to go through a major label right out of the gate, things like that. And I think it's interesting, just talking to some of my friends. I was recently talking to one of my friends who's a music producer, and we were kind of just talking about the setup of um, the music industry, where artists kind of feel like they need to sign to a label to get started, but they have no leverage, and it usually ends up with them having to sign a bad deal where, even if they do blow up eventually, they're kind of already tied in and in a rough situation with the economics of the deal. So I think Web3 could potentially be very interesting if you have these infrastructures where, instead of needing to go to a label to get that funding, your focus can really just be on putting out good content and building a community. And if you have a community, giving them the opportunity to invest in you directly or help you fund the project directly, um, and build as you're growing instead of needing that label, I think it sets up for a lot of interesting repercussions, because instead of a lot of the profits flowing back to big business like a label, it could flow back to a community instead, which has all types of implications of how money is transferred in the world as well from supporting new artists. And I think just holistically, it's a whole new landscape of how investing looks in terms of giving the everyday person a chance to be an investor in the next big thing instead of having those opportunities just go to big businesses or big labels. So that's the thing I'm interested in, is just how that whole setup could, shift the paradigm for wealth on a broader scale too.
I love that. I love the example of music, and I want to throw you guys a little bit of a curveball pop quiz. I think we'll have fun with it. So, I have a show called OKOP. It's a comedy show. We've gotten about 400,000 followers on TikTok in like 5 months, 20 to 30 million views a month, which sounds insane, but it's TikTok, so the views are very like, they come and they go, right? So I'm curious, if you guys are in my shoe, starting this media company with the comedy show, how would you think about tokenizing or creating an NFT project for that?
That's interesting, because I feel this is almost a perfect type of case study. So especially, I think my first type of thought would be, okay, what sort of platform could we create to be the ultimate home base for this community? And TikTok may be that home base if it's, something that people can come back to consistently enough and can have, consistent communication through, or maybe it's something like a Discord or another type of platform. But in my opinion, before even getting to the monetary side of things, I think like fully having that community in I don't know how to describe it, in an organized space is the most important thing. And I think a lot of projects have been trying to use Discord for that. I mean, we use Discord for that. And I don't know if Discord in the next few years will be the best thing for that. I'm interested to see what other sorts of platforms will pop up. But my curiosity, or the point that I would be interested in seeing, is, okay, how can we get those, people who are viewing the TikTok videos, how can we get them to have as many touch points as possible so it's not just reliant on TikTok? Can we get them to also follow us on Twitter? Can we get them to also follow us on Instagram? Can we engage with them in the Discord and things like that? I think once you have that sort of community in an organized space, you have a lot of leverage then. Because I think a lot of people now are realizing how powerful and important it is to have that many people's attention. Of course, because we live in, an attention economy. So then, I think from there it's deciding, okay, do we want to focus on monetizing with the community, or do we want to, strike partnerships with other people, build external partnerships to give access to the community type of thing. But I think it seems like you already have such an interesting base that you could even use something like NFTs to provide some sort of special access or almost like a subscription loyalty card in terms of, having special access to comedy events or, consistent comedy content or whatever it may be, and utilizing the NFT almost as a ticket to those events. Or even, I think another interesting thing could be almost using NFTs like an investment structure, like a lot of other platforms are doing in terms of, using NFTs to fund certain projects related to your platform. So if, per se, you wanted to do a comedy event in a big city, but you need some help funding it, maybe telling the community, okay, we're looking for people who want to help us put on this project. In the same way that a lot of people have been saying, we want to buy an NBA team, or we want to buy the Constitution, like the Constitution DAO, and utilizing NFTs as almost a crowdfunding way to raise money to do something, doing something big, and then sharing in the profits from doing something big because you were able to leverage a community to do it. So I think there's a lot of different, setups for how people are utilizing Web3 and utilizing NFTs. But I think the biggest thing is all of the most powerful things I've seen are centered around an organized community. And I think the projects that focus on that first are able to do some really cool things within this infrastructure. But I'm interested to hear Brandon's thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head about the tokenized community aspect of it. The one thing I was thinking about really quickly was maybe making a platform very similar to NBA Top Shot, but for comedy. So, instead of having highlights for sports, but you have snippets of the comedy itself, and you could then take part in investing in those snippets, or it could be actually the full length show, and then people could buy and sell those snippets. Let's say, like, because there are like certain bits that we all love from certain comedians, like, oh, I love this Chris Rock joke, or oh, I love this Kevin Hart joke, and I wish I had some way to own that. I don't think there's anything out there like that. That's actually a pretty good idea. I might have to run with that. No, okay.
Brandon says, strike this one from the record.
Yeah.
Right. You guys can take this one. No, but I'd be definitely interested to see if someone comes up with something like that. I mean, comedy is huge, right? Like, yeah. I think there definitely needs to be a platform, because honestly, the only reason I go on TikTok is for the comedic aspect of it, and Twitter and stuff like that, if I want to get a laugh. So I think some way of bridging an intersection where people can then invest in those creators that they love, I think that could be really huge too. So I think that would be a nice avenue.
And even that could be a cool way to discover like the newest up and coming comedians as well. And I think, that's been a cool thing of Web3 is there's potential of using the infrastructure to just give leverage to people when they're just starting, or when they maybe don't have a lot of financial resources, using collective resources to be able to, get people off the ground and do some really cool things there. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think there's even a lot of opportunity for you, like sort of like using this Web3 infrastructure to create new platforms, because I've seen, obviously right now for media, a lot of the platforms, it's sort of, when you think about a Spotify, or you think about a YouTube, or something like a TikTok, people get really excited of, the funds that they kind of grant to the creators. But if you really think about, the amount of money that these platforms make, they should be paying a lot more. It really is. And, a lot of people don't really realize that. And it's ironic that that's the case, because these platforms really are nothing but platforms if they don't have the content. So they kind of open source content, make a bunch of money off of it, and then throw back, a few pieces and a few dollars here and there, which I think people if they really sit down to think about it, collectively, the system shouldn't be that way, or these media platforms shouldn't be that way. People should be able to own the platforms, or like have equity or ownership in these platforms that are basically nothing without them. So I think that there's a lot of space for, content creators, for musicians, for podcasters to really be on the platforms where they get more of a ownership, or where they feel like they have more equity and aren't just getting, a few profits sprinkled down off of big businesses making billions of dollars.
I'm going to pass it back to Luke, but I'm going to be replaying that like 5 times and taking notes. Thank you for all those ideas. Incredible.
Yeah, I got to go back and steal Brandon's idea. Brandon's gonna see that just become a business one day.
Hey, as long as I get my 3%, then I'm okay.
On that same thought of just NFTs and tokenization, we definitely want to dive a little bit deeper into Moguls. So please tell the listeners, like, what is Moguls? Why is it needed right now? What is your goal, a short term, long term? We'd just love to hear you dive into that.
Yeah, so Moguls is a NFT collection and metaverse brand that me and Jordan created. Basically, Moguls, our idea is to diversify the Web3 space by onboarding as many people as we can, not just people that look like us, but people across the world, so that they can learn more about crypto and NFTs, because this is still a very niche space, and we want to have as many people learn about this revolution as we can. So we started off with a collection of NFTs as a way to kind of token gate our community. What that means is when you buy our NFT, you are now a member of an exclusive community of creators and entrepreneurs. And so within this community, we are offering people the opportunity to participate in our investment DAO, so that they can learn more about investing, learn more about upcoming projects, and also receive a share of the profits of those investments that we make. We're also doing live trading sessions where people can learn about technical analysis and trading on the stock market and crypto markets. Owning the NFT gives you access to discounts on our merchandise. Since we do have some experience in creating clothing, we wanted to transition that as well into the NFT space so that people could benefit from that as well. So those are some of the short-term things that we're offering. We're working on doing live events and digital events with other partners that we're working with in the background, so that people can meet each other from across the world in what we're calling Mogul meetups. And so that's our short-term goal. Our long-term goal is to just continue to expand this community into one of the larger communities in this space, where people are, utilizing each other's resources and their knowledge to, better reach their level of financial freedom, or their own version of financial freedom, increase their different streams of income, because at the end of the day, this is what this space is affording a lot of people. And we wanted to find a way that was unique, where people could, even if they never bought an NFT, could look at our NFT as a good starter and a good place to, really be able to start learning and diving in to the space. So really, if there's just an underlying mission I could say about Moguls, is that, we want people to come into this community to learn, to grow, and we want to create one of the largest communities that is centered around financial education, not just this year, but for years to come.
I love that. And I wanted to chat with you a little bit about kind of the trials and tribulations that come along with being a creator, and especially those new ones in the NFT space. So you share as little or as much as you'd like about this, but you recently had some trouble during the contract process of Moguls. Obviously, this must have been such a huge headache for you and the entire team, but it also must have been like an insanely massive learning experience. So I was wondering if you were comfortable with sharing with our listeners kind of what happened with this situation, what you had to do to overcome it, and what were some of the lessons that you've learned from this, and what can other creators learn from this experience, maybe both inside of the NFT space and out?
Yeah, we're 100% open to sharing, and honestly, I think it makes for a really great story in hindsight. So I think it would be cool to share. But I think that was one of our biggest challenges was just sort of having some issues on the development side, which, like you said, is really frustrating, especially when you feel like everything else is ready. You know, when you feel like the community is at a right spot where the hype is there, people are loving the artwork. It's really frustrating where when the technical side really falls through, and you kind of have to go back to the drawing board and re-strategize. So I think, the first time that really happened for us was, going up into launch date. And, we won't get into all of the details per se, but, we're sort of working with our developer on it. And for whatever reason, it wasn't able to be launched on the initial date. And so we had to, push it back a day, go back to the drawing board, and the hardest thing for us was just sort of the hardest thing, but also the biggest learning lesson was just learning how to really adapt on the fly, especially when you have a community that's expecting something soon and is excited and a little anxious. Just being able to put your emotions or your frustrations or your worries on the back burner and just think, okay, what's the next best step? What do we need to handle next? And what's the next thing that will keep us going? So the biggest thing for us there was we realized that we needed to bring more people on the team who could help iron out our issues on the tech side. So really, I remember this in the heat of the moment for us being, scouring Twitter, sending people a bunch of DMs, you know, kind of trying to feel out how experienced they were, seeing if they could hop on Zoom chats like in the next 15 minutes, and really just trying to get people on board as fast as possible. And thankfully, after we had some of our initial issues, we were able to connect with somebody literally who I remember I explained our whole situation to him, and he was willing to hop on Zoom in the next 15 minutes and kind of just ease our worries. And in fact, the next night, that guy actually stayed up with us, pulled an all-nighter with us to, code out, build a new website, build a new minting site, and fix all the bugs and have it ready. I think we launched at noon the next day. So that week was just crazy for us because even up to the date where we didn't launch, we pulled all-nighters that night just to get everything in order, and then we thought we would be done, but with the wrench in our plans, we had to stay up and do an all-nighter the next night as well. Um, and so eventually we were able to launch, but we thought our problems were done there, but we found out the problem was deeper than we thought. That it wasn't that there was more problems with the initial smart contract, which comes with a lot of issues because that initial smart contract can't be changed, which means that you have to bring on a developer who's very experienced in doing a smart contract migration to sort of build a new contract and move people over from that first V1 to the new V2. And so another part of that, another learning lesson with that was because that was a last minute thing that we were bringing new people onto, having to work around their schedules and their prior commitments and find the best way to say, look, I know you have your full-time job as well. You have family obligations. When can we schedule this to get things done? And the biggest thing that I'll probably let Brandon talk about, the most important thing was just learning how to, share these updates with our communities and lead our community in a transparent way when things weren't looking good in the background and when we didn't have a lot of good news to share. Just learning how to grow as leaders and share our flaws, share the shortcomings, but share openly what we were doing to fix it and keep people updated. And I think that's where we learned the most. And I'm sure Brandon has a lot of things to chip in on that end.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan laid it out very well, but I think that was the toughest part was, I think the toughest part for me where I lost a lot of sleep was not so much the developmental stuff. Like I knew those things were going to get ironed out over time. It's just as long as you align yourself with someone who's experienced and makes you feel comfortable and they know what they're doing, then those things will get ironed out at a certain point. It's just how do you communicate that to the people you're selling to, and how do you communicate that to your community who, at the end of the day, you're catering to the customer and they want something right then and there, you don't deliver it, then you internally feel like you failed, or you feel like, what's going to happen the next day? Are we going to even have people that buy our NFTs? We worked 5-6 months tirelessly on this project to get to the finish line, and things aren't working out the way they should. So that's almost devastating in its own right. So for us, we didn't want to sugarcoat anything, and I think that's the biggest thing that we learned as creators, is that especially if you're catering to a community or launching a product to a larger audience, you want to be as transparent as possible. And I think people respect you more for that, regardless if that news or that information is not what they want to hear. Again, it's just at the end of the day, I think people are going to respect and know that regardless of the outcome, they are being honest with us. When they get updates, they're going to get updates as well. If we don't get updates, then, we don't have any news to share. And, in the traditional business standpoint, right, let's say, we're selling our t-shirts and we don't get a shipment in time, right? In traditional Web2 business, you just tell people on Instagram, hey, we're going to push our launch date next week, and okay, I'll buy it next week, right? But in this new world of Web3, where everything is, so transparent, and like everything is driven off of hype, and it's very fast paced. There's a new NFT collection every day at this point. And then everyone's attention spans are already very short. If you have one little misstep or one mishap, they're on to the next collection. And that's something that I worried about as well. So you really start to figure out who your core following is, and who are, just people there for the, for the short term. And I think we kind of weeded out those people, which could be a good or bad thing. You can look at it a number of different ways. But at the end of the day, I think it was a great learning lesson for us, because we now know, number one, as a creator, you got to know who you align yourself with. Jordan talked about it earlier, where we knew what our strengths were as creators, and we knew that we had to align ourselves with someone that had the technical acumen to put this together for us from a contract standpoint. And we failed at picking the right person and right team to do that. And that's, we take responsibility on doing that as well. So as creators, especially if you're trying to scale a business or scale a project, and you're aligning yourself with people that you have to trust, you have to make sure that you do your proper vetting to make sure that each person plays their role, so that in totality, the project can succeed. Because if one person or one cog in the wheel is out of place, then everything can come crashing down. And that's kind of, what happened there. So, a lot of the times, or every time, it's been just me and Jordan. So I know what Jordan's going to bring. He knows what I'm going to bring, and we're the dynamic duo. But this is one of our largest scale businesses that we created up to this point. So we knew we couldn't do it by ourselves. So that's why we had a team of 6 to 8 people working on this. And unfortunately, just some things happened in the background that I can't even talk about, that that we had to quickly move on to someone else. So that's the biggest thing. Make sure you align yourself with the proper people. You can work just as hard on a project or have this huge vision for something, but if someone else doesn't have that same vision, doesn't have that same work ethic, or is not as transparent as you, then they can unfortunately bring you down. So I think that's the biggest thing we learned. But at the end of the day, we were able to successfully get a new contract up. We were able to migrate to a new contract. Everyone got to see their NFTs finally, and I think now it's just about us building from here and learning from our mistakes. Because at the end of the day, this is still a very new market. NFTs haven't even been as NFTs really hit the scene, even though they've been around in 2017. They exploded, and people started to know about them last year. So it hasn't really been even a full year since NFTs have been traded at the volume they have now. So even developers are still learning this process. Creators are still learning this process, and we still have a long way to go until things are really seamless. So I'm just glad that we were able to be early on this, and I think over time, when we launch other collections or other projects in this space, we'll know what to look out for. So That's a little behind the scenes about that.
100%. Yeah, thank you for being so open and sharing that. And my mom actually dropped a bar on me recently that I think perfectly describes the situation. You turn lemons into tequila because here's this thing that, like, in the moment, it's like, this is a fucking disaster. But now it's like, this is a story of us. We figured it out and we still delivered to the community. And I think that that's something that people, I mean, being so open and honest about it, I think people will actually like rock for you guys even harder now that you've like, these things happen. And the fact that you're so open and transparent with it, I think is really awesome. So thank you for sharing that. As we kind of come to our closer here, I am curious to hear what is up next for you guys, if there's anything in kind of like the near view, and just more broadly, like what are your biggest dreams? Like you've already done so much. Like, what are your big hopes and aspirations to get out of your careers?
Well, I'll kick that off and then I'll see what Brandon's thoughts are. But I think specifically for Meta Moguls, what's next? I think the most tangible thing that's next for us is, rolling out the DAO. And basically, like we said a little earlier, our DAO will be sort of set up as investment clubs that will allow holders to sort of um, have collective ownership of a lot of different digital assets, whether it's a portfolio of NFTs or ownership in plots of land in the metaverse and Decentraland or other platforms, or even if it's just a collection of coins and other um, cryptocurrencies to invest in. And I think this will be really cool because it kind of ties in with our brand's theme of financial literacy and promoting, investing and entrepreneurship and just giving people tangible ways to learn more or get more experience with investing in a fun way. So I'm really excited about that as well. I think um, it'll be sort of fulfilling our promise of what we said earlier in terms of that when people were supporting our project, that they would have a stake in it, that a portion of our profits would go straight to the community fund, and that people would get to decide how those would be used through the investment DAO and what they wanted to use those for the benefit of the collective group. So I think that will be really exciting. We also started working on Meta Moguls, our second collection, so the V2 collection, which I think people will be really excited about when they see it. We've been, collaborating with a new artist who has some really cool ideas and is really excited to um, just get to share his expression of his own art and his own style through this collection. So I think that'll be something that's really cool as well. And, just for me personally, I think that, I don't think I necessarily have a lot of aspirations or things I want to check off the list on the business side, but I'm just really excited to be able to, get back to things that I'm really passionate about in terms of building community, in terms of, having amazing experiences, meeting new people and just feeling that energy that kind of was missing during the last 2 years right after I graduated college with the pandemic and all of that. I think I'm just really excited to be able to have more events, to have more experiences, whether it's digital or in person, and just being able to kind of get more aligned with my skills and passion again.
Yeah, I completely agree. Jordan pretty much touched on the meta mogul stuff, so I just can't wait to see how we continue to expand the ecosystem and also just work with other brands as well, whether they're digital or in the physical space. I would love to continue to expand our ecosystem to give more value to our holders. But yeah, on a personal side, just hope to continue to grow as a leader within the Web3 space. I hope to just continue to expand my different ventures as well. I think um, having multiple streams of income is important, especially as an entrepreneur. So I want to help other projects and other people who have ideas and help advise them when it comes to either starting a collection or just integrating their traditional business into the digital economy. Now that I have, 6 to 7 months of experience, I want to be able to pass that on to people that don't have any experience or don't know where to start. So I want to pay that forward. So I'm working on that. Just want to diversify into other forms of investment like real estate, whether it's virtual real estate or physical real estate. I'm doing some more speaking engagements as well on the side. So just trying to pay it forward to the younger generation, to people who are older as well, who are trying to integrate themselves into crypto, and tie that all together with what I'm doing in Meta Moguls. So that's what's my goal, what my goals are for this year and beyond. So I'm super excited.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah, really, guys, thank you so much for a lot of gems were dropped on this episode. Thank you so much both for your time. We really, really enjoyed having you on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you guys. Yeah, this was a really fun combo. Just getting to dive into some of these concepts and, even hear some new stuff from Brandon's perspective that, we haven't gotten to chat about yet. So that's
There
always
we
fun
go.
too.
Awesome. Thank you guys.